Hello, Lynn Watts here with Wyatt the Wonder Dog Books. And today I'm going to continue talking some about burnout, but I'm going to really focus in on one of the hardest things about uh, setting boundaries and saying no, which is how to say no without being abrasive. And so I think the fact that we don't want to let somebody down, or we want to be helpful, we want to do everything we can to um, support other people at our school, on our team, in our relationships, many times makes it difficult to set a boundary. Of course, there's some other reasons for that as well, but I think those are some of the key things that get in the way of setting boundaries for a school counselor in particular. So one of the things that I had to learn, and I'm going to say that setting boundaries was probably something that I had to really work on myself. And one of the things that I needed to learn to do was how to say no. And I think oftentimes we think of no as being rejection. We don't like hearing no ourselves, but it can depend a lot on how you say no and why you say no. So let's talk about that a little bit. One of the things that we can do to say no without being abrasive is use an approach that is saying something positive. And honestly, this is something you can do in parent conferences as well. When you're delivering some information that is going to be difficult to hear, it's kind of the sandwich approach. So, but in terms of a boundary, you begin with something positive, then you set what the boundary is, and then you give an alternative so that you're not just leaving somebody stranded, like, no, I'm not going to do that, figure it out. So here's how to do that. So you start with some sort of appreciation or some sort of validation. And it can be as simple as, I really appreciate that you thought of me for that. All right. So one of the things I'm just going to use as an example for me personally, when I was working in a school, was that I got asked to be on a lot of committees. And well, we won't go into why that would happen, but I, at a certain point, began to feel that it was taking up so much of my time being on these committees that I couldn't do other things that were really key to my role as a counselor, number one. And number two, that I really wasn't always the best choice for that committee. All right. It was more, well, we need to include everybody, and hey, let's include the counselor too. So, there were a lot of reasons for that. But let's say that you have some similar request that in your heart you need to set a boundary or you need to say no. So you can begin with something that is appreciative. And it can be as simple as, I appreciate you thinking of me for this. All right. I appreciate you asking me. I appreciate you fill in the blank. All right. But think of some positive thing that you can say about the request. Then the next piece of that is that you set the boundary. All right. So you can't shy away from this. All right. You can't make it, you can't equivocate. You can't be like, well, I'll think about it. All right. The problem with that is that then you have to go back and do it all over again and say no. All right. So better to set your boundary right away, so that there's no question about it. So you begin with the appreciation. The second thing is you state your boundary clearly. I'm not able to take that on. I don't have enough bandwidth, is, kind of people, nicer way to say maybe I don't have time. I'm overwhelmed with this current responsibility. I have you again. You know why you need to set that boundary. So figure out a way that you can state it clearly, but make sure that you are saying no. You're not just leaving them hanging that maybe you'll be there. All right. And then the third thing is, if you can offer an alternative to you taking on that duty or that task, whatever it is, then you're actually benefiting them in many ways. So you might say, I can't be part of that meeting, but if you would like some input from me, I could, give you a list of what I think is important, or what topics I need you to cover, or what the role of the counselor would be in that problem solving situation, or however you could do it. All right. Or you might suggest some resources for them. Or you might suggest another person. Now, this is not throwing someone under the bus, but if you know there's somebody who really is good at that and who would really be a benefit and would love it if they got invited, or at least would consider it, um, because that's really what they do, then you might suggest, so and so has much more expertise than I do in that particular area. You might try them. Or you might say, this is a book, or this is a video, or this is a resource of some sort that you could use as you prepare for that. Offer some sort of resource to them. All right. So very simple process, and it doesn't mean that you give some lengthy explanation about how you feel so bad about you can't help them out and all this. You can just simply say, I appreciate you thinking of me for that committee meeting. Right now I'm kind of overcommitted in terms of the number of meetings that I'm on, but I do know that this person here has some time, and they also have a lot of expertise in that area. You might try them. All right. So I think that is probably one of the best ways that you can say no. So what are some of the other strategies, things that will be helpful in setting those boundaries? I've mentioned this before, but make sure you define your role clearly. So make sure, for instance, if somebody's asking you to be part of something, that it is something that you have some expertise in, or that you're able to contribute in, that you're not just a warm body because they need one more person to be available for that. Make sure that you have scheduled your priorities first. So if you're being asked to take on one more thing, are you already pretty full in terms of, is that not one of your priorities, taking care of that particular situation? It doesn't mean that it's not important. It simply means for you, it's not one of your priorities. It helps if you have some structure. So if we're talking about maybe doing some sort of check-in or check-out with students, all right? Make sure you know what your office hours are, and you have a block here where you would be able to do that. Or all of your time blocks are full, and that time block is already full of something else. So again, if you have structure within what you're doing, how you're planning your day, then it's easier to set boundaries around that. Don't just think of setting boundaries as saying no to meetings or taking on new tasks. Think about setting email boundaries. I only check my emails at this certain time. I respond within this certain time frame, but I only check them between 4 and 5. So if you send me an email at 6 or 11 at night, it's going to be the next day at this time. You can set boundaries like that. And the final thing, I think, is document. I know we hate this word, but if you document what you do, so you're clear on how many students you're seeing a day, how many classrooms you're seeing a day, you have a schedule. Again, this routine can make a difference. Then you have backup for where you set your boundaries. I can't possibly do one more thing during my work day because I have this many classes, I see clients in between. And so you have a clear reason for setting that boundaries. And this is a good thing to remember. If you don't set your boundaries, if you don't define your role, someone else will do it for you. They'll be happy to do that for you. So make sure that you take care of yourself first. And when you are taking care of yourself first, really what you're doing is you're taking care of your students first, because you're setting aside the time that you need to really meet their needs and really take care of what they need for you to be doing in your job as a counselor. So that's my take on setting boundaries and how that can prevent burnout. I've talked about that in another video, but obviously if you are overwhelmed and stressed, then you're not going to be able to meet the needs of the students, and you're going to get burned out. So as always, I want to thank you for all the good work that you do with students, supporting students, helping students, and thanks as always for listening.